years ago, I took my mother on a trip to Las Vegas. We were staying at the Venetian Hotel. It's this beautiful hotel that actually replicates Venice from Italy, and it has this inside plaza with a canal and shops, and you can even take gondola rides. And my mother and I were coming out of the elevator, and she was looking at the sights, and she says, "It's getting so dark so early." And I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Look, it's already sunset." And I said, "You see those little black dots on the sky? Those are sprinklers. We're still inside." And she looked at the ceiling, and she looked at me, and she said, "And why did you have to tell me? Couldn't you let me enjoy it for a little while longer?" What my mother had experienced was an illusion, a subjective perception that doesn't match the physical reality. Now, when we talk about illusions outside of the laboratory, we mostly think of those cases in which the discrepancy between perception and reality is largest. But the fact is that we almost never have a perfect correspondence, and which means that all, or at least most of our experience is partly illusory. We never have a perfect match. So we're going to go through a few examples so that you can experience exactly what I mean. If you look at this image, you can see a grid with a number of vertical as well as horizontal lines. They're actually horizontal. Now, you may be thinking, those are not horizontal lines, those are oblique. But that's the illusion that we're dealing with. And the illusion is given by these little black and white squares that you see at the intersections of the bars. We're going to get rid of them just by blurring the image a little bit. And as the image gets blurred and those little squares become harder to see, now you can face the truth. The bars are perfectly horizontal in reality. And you can actually, if you don't believe me, you can achieve the same effect just by blurring the image by squinting your eyes. Here's the trick. Even though now you know and you have proven to yourselves that these bars are actually horizontal rather than oblique, that knowledge doesn't help you. It doesn't help you at all. The illusion is basically hardwired in your brain. Much as you try, you cannot see those bars as horizontal. Now, illusions are happening all the time, and they affect our visual system. In fact, most of the illusions in the sensory domain that we experience are visual illusions. Now, the visual system is the most complex of our sensory systems, and it has the most illusions, which already tells you something about maybe these illusions are actually helping us, and they're not errors, as they're often thought about. But we also have illusions in other senses. We have auditory illusions, tactile illusions, and we have cognitive illusions themselves that affect our thinking and our decision-making, our memory, all sorts of cognitive processes. Let's talk a little bit more about visual illusions. This is an illusion that affects our perception of brightness. You can see two sets of chess pieces, white on top, black on bottom, or is it? If you remove the background, you can see that in fact, these are the same exact chess pieces, up and down. For our brain, there are in fact no absolute terms. We don't have black or white. Everything depends on context and contrast. Same with color. Here we have a picture of two colored birds. Again, I'm not telling you the truth. What we're looking at is a black and white picture of birds with a colored grid superimposed. Now, pixel by pixel, you can see that color is very scarce in this image. Most of the pixels are by far on gray tones, but our brain is taking the color information out of the grid and is using it to fill the rest of the contours of this image. Now, we often hear about AI hallucinating content and generating false information based on patterns more than facts. The fact is, our brain generates most of your experience. We only take small snapshots, tiny portions of reality, and we construct, not reconstruct, we construct the rest. We make it up, so to speak. We have talked about brightness and color. Now let's think about shape. This illusion, if we can turn it down a little bit, thank you. This illusion comes from the Best Illusion of the Year contest that I host annually. And what you're looking at is an actual mirror, like you have at home, and an actual 3D object. This is not AI generated, it's not Photoshop. This is an object that you can hold in your hands. And what you're looking at is a matter of perspectives, which is true. The reflected image on the mirror or the object in front of it. Well, both of them are equally true and equally untrue as well. Again, a matter of perspective. I'll let you ponder that for a little bit, but we have actually, the video has revealed the secret behind the illusion itself. So it seems incredible, and it really takes advantage of our assumptions about simple objects such as mirrors. Appearances can be deceiving. So, and with that, let's take a look at these beautiful pictures of beautiful people. I want you to look at the very center of this image. Keep your eyes on the cross. And these are the same people that you all know and love, but they become very ugly very quickly. You can look at them directly. I'm not changing anything. It's all happening in your brains right now. Look at the cross. They become really hideous. Look at them directly. They're gorgeous again. What is happening here? Well, again, there are no absolutes for your brain. Even beauty is not an absolute. And this all depends on contrast and comparison. For each single pair of these images, your brain is making a very quick comparison with what happened immediately beforehand. And so somebody who has a regular size nose is going to look, in comparison to what came before, like they have a huge nose and so on and so forth. So it's just very hard to know what's real. And we can even get a sense for it ourselves right here and right now. I want you to look at the very center of this image. It's important that you don't take your eyes away from the center, because what we're doing right now is we're adapting your motion-sensitive neurons of your visual system to the directions of motion that are actually happening right now. And we need to do this for about 30 seconds or so. So keep looking at the center, don't look away. And so what's happening as you do this exercise is that the neurons in your visual system, the neurons that are sensitive to the opposite directions of motion, have not been adapted, so they're going to respond more strongly in comparison. Now, before the video turns off again, I want you to look at the face of the person that is sitting right next to you. Do it right now. And you should see something interesting. So, why is this happening? Well, this is happening because even though we don't know exactly why it is that we experience illusions rather than the truth, we know a few principles. And these principles come given by the fact that we don't have enough neural resources to process all the reality that is out there. We're constantly bombarded by sensory information, as well as by our own thoughts and memories and imaginations and plans and so forth. We just don't have the neural machinery for all of that. We're limited by the size of our brain, and the size of our brain is limited by the birth canal, and so we don't have enough neurons, neuronal connections, brain areas. We have to pick and choose very carefully what we're going to extract from the world, and we're going to take a lot of shortcuts. One of them is filling perceptual as well as cognitive gaps. All the time, we're filling in blanks with information that may be right or wrong. We also impose order, structure, even though our environment, our social and physical environment and inputs can be very disorganized, we artificially organize them in our brain. We impose our own order. Like in this illusion here, we can see a grid in which only the center looks organized, the two flanks are very disorganized, but we're going to organize the whole thing right here, right now, in your own brains. Look at the center, choose one of the intersections, choose one of the crosses, fix your gaze as precisely as you can, and in just a few seconds, your brain is going to take that nice, orderly information from the center and apply it to the sides so that the whole grid becomes organized. Again, you are the one doing it. The physical grid is as disorganized as ever. So we fill in blanks, we impose order, and we tell stories. We tell stories to other people, we tell stories to ourselves about how the world and even we ourselves work. There was an experiment conducted in 2005 by a group of scientists that came up, they discovered the concept of what we call now choice blindness. What does this mean? This is the general structure of the experiment. Experimental participants were given a choice between two pictures of real people, and they had to pick the one that they thought was most attractive. So people would pick whatever one they liked best, and they would point at it. Then the scientists would turn both pictures face down, and they would ask the participant to grab the picture they just chose. What the participants didn't know was that the scientists had been trained by a professional magician to conduct the sleight of hand maneuver. So when the participants picked the picture they thought they had chosen, they ended up with the opposite picture, the opposite of their choice. Now, about 30% of the time, people didn't realize they're having a swap. So that's already kind of scary. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came when, having picked the wrong picture without realizing, they were asked, okay, so why did you choose that picture? Why did you think that was more attractive than the other photo? And remember, that's not the picture they chose. They chose the opposite picture. And you might think, well, these people, obviously they didn't choose that picture. They might be saying, well, I don't know. I cannot think of anything. I have no idea. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. People came up with all sorts of reasons why they made that choice that they didn't actually make. They would say, well, actually, she looks like this aunt of mine that I'm really close to, and that's why I chose her. Or like, I really like her earrings. That's why I made that choice, even though the picture that they chose had no earrings. So, yeah, liar, liar, pants on fire. That's not why you chose it. Not at all. So, and they would lie to the experimenters. They would lie to themselves, presumably without realizing. And so that's very interesting because, well, it tells us that first, we don't think, and then we act, and we may very well be doing the opposite, at least some of the time. We act, and then we try to figure out why we did the things we did. But also, we try to interpret our own behavior from a third-person perspective, much like we're trying to guess the reasons for somebody else's actions. Like, well, that person didn't say hi to me in the morning. Is she mad at me? Maybe she didn't have her coffee. And we do the same thing to ourselves about our own actions. We're just guessing why we do the things we do. But I also see reason for hope, because oftentimes we agonize about choices, like, should I move to a different city? Or should I spend the rest of my life with this person? Should I take this job offer? And the fact is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because whatever you choose, you're going to come up with all sorts of reasons to tell yourself that that was the best choice. That was a perfectly reasonable choice. So we can just relax. The fact is, illusions are here to stay. And even if we wanted to get rid of them, we couldn't. And we wouldn't want to get rid of them because illusions help us. Illusions make us more effective, they make us quicker, they make us react more effectively to our physical and our social environment. Illusions also make us happier because, for instance, romantic relationships, those that are most successful are the relationships in which people idealize their partners. They think that they're better looking, that they're smarter, than they're better people than they really are. In mental health, the fact is, when faced in a gambling situation in the laboratory, people who are depressed estimate their odds much more accurately than people who are not depressed. People who are not depressed are unrealistically optimistic. And that's a good thing for your mental health. Illusions also help us estimate distances in a sort of adaptive way. From an evolutionary perspective, we consider that a distance is longer when we estimate it while wearing a backpack than when we don't have a weight, when we're not carrying a weight, estimating distance. Or we estimate that people that are holding a weapon are stronger and taller and scarier than the same exact people when they're holding a tool instead. So illusions are helpful. They're not errors of our perception. They're intrinsic to our experience and to the way that our brain works. You and I and none of us have ever lived in reality. You haven't even been there even for a visit. All the reality that you have experienced has been mediated by your neural hardware and software. So learn to love your illusions. They're good for you. They're here to stay. And they are, in fact, what makes us human. Thank you.